Welcome back. Welcome back. We're here with the Love and Worship podcast. Yes, I'm your host, Kingsley Kase, and it is a fiery week. I mean, it probably shouldn't be using fiery because of all the natural disasters that's happened with fire, stuff that's been going on in North Carolina, stuff that's happening in Cali, still happening in Cali, stuff that's happening around the world with wars in Ukraine and Russia and economic uncertainty with tariffs being in place and people being a lot more nervous about whether or not they want to go somewhere in some third world country to invest when there's so much economic uncertainty in the markets is showing that maybe that's not a wise thing to do right now. But we have a lot to talk about, and this is episode 10. Listen, y'all, we made it to episode 10. Like, ooh, I said I was going to do 10 episodes for myself without, having a co-host or anything like that. And I'm still planning on doing some interviews, some big interviews. Listen, I have a lot of friends that have very much so succeeded and did amazing things in their lifetime. And, I'm going to be reaching out to them, seeing what they want to talk about and just ask them about, nuggets that can help you, my listeners. And we're still not, haven't found a location yet where we can actually host these podcasts where I can go vlogging and stuff like that with these podcasts. But I feel as if right now, most people, if they're driving, it's easier for them to drive and listen. It's easy for them to do work and listen. But for them to do work and visually look at something while doing work, multitasking and that sort of affair, it can sometimes be so much consuming because I'm a very attractive guy. I'm very handsome. I'm a handsome kind of guy, So I will captivate your focus. All right. No more holding it up. Look, meet me back here. We're going to talk more about the course of life. Chapter 7, the final chapter in my book. Meet me back here.
You got the desires. Yes, you got.
Hey, it's good. It's good to be back. Good to be back. I know there is so much uncertainty that's out there. One of the things I find to be very uncertain right now is just the whole thing about the wars, the new war. I don't want to scare anyone. I'm here to just bring more positive energy into the world and show more kindness. There's so much uncertainty out there. And my whole journey with this podcast has been very uncertain. I will tell you, I started with music, posting up the music, and I seen a lot of streams on the Spotify, with the music and everything. And then I forgot, that I made a statement that I was going to, come with my own podcast on a Love and Worship podcast and really, deal with subjects that people want to hear about, or at least my audience of people want to hear about and know about what's happening. And I got a little, I want to say I got super distracted. I would say the music was just, the music still is my focal point. I still want to do it. I'm still going into it. The relaunch experience has not been that great, but the joy in my heart has been even better. And I've gotten so much more encouraged over just the battles. I mean, there are battles that both Jason and I had to go through because, Jason being a savant, if you don't know what it is like to work with somebody that's like that, trust me, it's a beautiful experience. One of the things I want to really highlight is that it's a beautiful experience, but at the same time, they're gonna be in a stage where they're asking questions, maybe that one time or maybe twice or something like that. All depends on how much information they're getting at the same time. and they're gonna they're in a place where they understand and have a perspective on things, and that perspective on things also corrects for all the bad habits you would have been doing, which means that if you have a bad habit, it's going to be very noticeable. If you have spots, it's going to be very noticeable. If if you are, a beast when it comes to like doing music and having the skill set to do music, it's going to be very noticeable when they present not just concepts and ideas that you haven't even thought of, or maybe you've already been thinking of these things or imagining these things, and then they're talking about these things as well. And then you're just like, gee, I mean, most persons at this age group are not thinking about these things. They're thinking about all the fun things and how beautiful their voice are, or how organic this makes them feel, and or something like that, something posy, or something imposter like they're more imagining what their projections are. But working with Jay was more like, this kid, I mean, not a kid, but I mean, this young man is not just bright future, full of promise, meek, humble, easy to work with, and he also brilliant. But he's also somebody who's so vastly capable and is beyond his age group, in areas, but it's like he's holding back, like, when he acts, and a lot of things like I was preparing him for was just more for his protection, like keeping him from certain things that would, because I've been around people who alienate you when you're beyond them, and I didn't want him to get in the industry full time and meet people like that who will try to block him and alienate him, not just because of his questions or because of what he's doing and how capable he is, and also what the corrections he's willing to make, and the steps he's willing to take for it to ultimately be the best that he is able to present, not just according to advice, not just according to whatever he's getting elsewhere, but it's just he actually has that innate ability. We've sat and listened to a song, and he hears stuff that I would hear, and some of the stuff that I naturally would have heard when I was younger. I wasn't able to reproduce those things on the same scale level that he's reproducing those things at. In other words, given the opportunity, given the him going through development for maybe, honestly, to tell the truth, I mean, his future is bright. I mean, a lot of people, right now they're hyping over Doce and all these other persons out there, and I see Toby back. Just this new album, I've listened to it. It's awesome. I've downloaded it. Jordan's Unplugged album, one Unplugged album. It's amazing. I've listened to it. I love what I'm hearing. I'm not gonna drop my album until Lecrae drops his. I'm just staying with that. Whenever he drops his, I know that means it's time for me to drop mine. I just know. I just wait on it, because our spirits have been kind of aligning on a lot of subjects. A lot of things he's been addressing and sharing on his side has kind of been aligned. I've been looking at a lot of new books, been reading some books. Christian Kane has some books, Don't Look Back. I also have a book that is titled Don't Look Back that, will be released sometime, not this March, but it will be released. My new book that's going to be released, I can't disclose what the title of the book is yet, but this is chapter 10. I'm super excited about chapter 10. Chapter 10, well, with all the development that's going on, mentorship and stuff like that, one of the things I've garnered to is that in my relationship with someone who's savant, I've also learned what it was like to maybe for other persons who are dealing with me, like when I was growing up and how I used to be with asking questions, asking my parents questions, or just being so much more aware on or emotionally intelligent on some subjects. So I realized what that was like for me, and I had to go back to that in order to develop a closer understanding of what it's like for Jason, and the beauty thing, the awesome thing about this is that I got to the point where I realized that the stretching was healthy. I got to the point and realized the stretching was healthy, and not only was it healthy, I started writing and producing music that I typically would not do. Like literally, music I would not do. Like I'm not gonna. I wouldn't produce a record for a rap song. I mean, I have done it in the past. I could do that stuff. I mean, but it's just that I just wouldn't, because I'm just so fascinated over the fact of just the organic styles of music, like the acoustics, and or if I wanted to go to the electrical, just that whole movement of music and how to apply it, or I wanted to go modernize with some modern feel that included also like DJ, not samples, but more like just like a mixed feel, like gave you a radio vibe. And I can go there, but it has to be more ballad like, or singer songwriter like, or give me like that countryside island boy feel. That's who I am. I've always been that way though. From I grew up, I love ballads, but I also love jazz too. I love gospel. I love R&B. Not the stuff that's so with all these innuendos and the nasty stuff. I love the R&B that it used to be, but people were honest who were singing, and they weren't like Luther Vandross, who were like secret about their lifestyles. But I'm talking about like artists that were very, very well written, I would say. Like when they wrote their songs transferred and help people through not just relationships, but also help young people in my age group as a millennial, true life, like just dealing with life. And I found that there's just so much in Christian music at the time that didn't respond to that. And, my number one rebuke to Christian music back then was that, hey, look, gospel music started off from something secular. Like, don't act like you guys started off with something like it was so holy from it started. No, you started from a secular place. Like, you used the elements of mixtures of music and mixtures of genres to create this one thing that you call now gospel music. So why do we always try to make it seem like, oh, well, God created music, he's the God of music. So if God created music, then that means all music is blessed, except for the music that worships up the devil and gives the devil glorification. But and so this is the kind of thing that I usually would teach and I would try to share and educate people on. And there are different levels when it comes to worship. I've thought about worship. I've shared on worship, and I was sharing on worship prior to Asaph, before Dr. Monroe taught on Asaph and all this other stuff. I mean, a lot of people do know all those things and stuff like that, but I've always had a very inclined view on what worship is and what worship was. And as Rick Warren would always say, it's like, it's a lifestyle. And if you try to, you try to portray it in a point of view as if like, oh, well, my lifestyle is perfect, I don't have to worry about all this stuff and all this jigabab stuff. My point is this: everything you do in life adds or takes away from your worship. It adds to take away from the energy that you put in and put into the world. So if you put in something very good and positive, and you talk about people in a positive light, and you try to, I'm not going to talk about the devil in the positive life. Let me just get it right. I'm just not going to do that. I'm not going to talk about people who are demon possessed in a positive light. I'm gonna address it as it is. What I'm talking about here is talking about people who we are working with, who we're dealing with, that are challenging us to expand beyond just ourselves, and but also being ambassadors to helping them achieve their goals. And I always say I'm cool with being the ambassador of love. I'm not shy from being an ambassador of love. And I'm very open about that. And I am not ashamed with being the ambassador of love. Another thing too, I'm also when it comes to growth, when it comes to having peace in mind, when it comes to just being a better friend. One of the things I always try to do is make time. I make time for the people that I care about. I try to listen to them. I try to find out what's going on with them. I do the same thing with my youths. Every month I try to do this thing where I call my youths, or if some of them, it's going to be a little different because some of them are like really, really young teens, adolescent teens. So I wanted to like talk to them more in a public space and stuff like that it's comfortable and acceptable, so that they understand that they should not be on the phone, especially if they're female, they should not be on the phone with an adult male that's like in his 40s or something like that, talking to them one-on-one without their parents being present. I just don't find that to be a thing. Like, I don't think that's ever appropriate. I think if anything, those conversations need to be had with those parents, versus me having those conversations with those teens in that stage, because I don't want an adult male calling the house asking for my future daughter or something like that, or future son, some adult female that's in her late 40s or something, like calling asking for my son who's like 11, 10 or something like that. I mean, who doesn't have any direct relationship and builds known relationship with the family, and without me being present, you know what I mean? I would need to be present, want to be in the room to ask him, what did he say? What did y'all talk about? What was that about? Or something like that. Just to make sure there's nothing that's said that's inappropriate, or something that causes my young puberty-oriented teen to freak out and start going nuts because they have this added pressure that they don't know how to handle, or something is, or something is said, and I know that maybe it should not be said in that kind of light, or whatever the case would be. So I'm very careful about that. I'm very careful, and then I also push my teens, because I know when they're easily distracted, when there's too much stuff going on, but they do need to focus. And I try to push them. I push them with a delicate sense, but also I still have to also push them, like literally push them into their roles, like into their giftings, and get them to focus more. And it allows them to build confidence. But if they don't build confidence, if you don't help them to build confidence and let them know what that's like when you didn't have confidence, when you were shy, like I had stage fright out of this world. My mom could tell you that. My sister could tell you that. My brothers could tell you that. My dad could tell you that. I had it bad, like to the point of whereas, like, it made me asthmatic in a way, and a lot of people probably don't know that about me, but I've overcame asthma, but my family didn't know what it was. I struggled, when I had my panics and stuff like that, I would struggle to breathe. Like I literally struggled to breathe. I remember a friend who knew that about me gave me a brown paper bag to breathe in when I had one of those. And it was really bad. I had to literally breathe, and that helped me to control my breathing. But I went my entire life without having to use one of those medical, little antidotes, little bits and pieces that helps you to breathe and expand your lungs. I went, so singers who don't understand why I sing the way I do. That's why I sing the way I do. I've never talked about this in some, maybe I've talked about this in one of my books, but I've never fully talked about this. And this is why I breathe the way I breathe when I sing, like, and that's a part of it, like, and sometimes it's, and the fact that I push the way I push, that's what it is, and most people who don't know that about me wouldn't know that. And that's why heights has always been something, because it would make me, even when I was a kid and I would get on planes, like I had experienced that. I remember one time I was on a plane with my parents, and I know we were traveling for the convention, and I had a shock on the plane. No one knew, but right in that instance, while I was happening to me, as the plane was like elevating, taking off, it started to happen. And for probably like, I would say maybe like 6 minutes of that plane ride, I was just breathing in and out as if like trying to expand my lungs, because I felt like my lungs were like grabbing on my heart or something, like pulling down on my heart. It was one of the worst experience I've ever had. But this is the fact of maybe the education system back then, maybe the teachers didn't know what was going on back then, and stuff like that with me. But people always wonder why I was like reserved and stuff like that, and or I would beating myself or whatever, or and even when I played sports, like me playing sports and doing what I was doing, all that was like expanding my reach and my lungs and stuff like that. Now I probably wasn't the only one in my time on the island that had something like that going on. My parents didn't know, I didn't know, and until I started learning up the symptoms of what to be asthmatic looks like. And I had all those symptoms as a kid growing up. How did I become cured or whatever the case may be? I don't know that for sure whether I'm cured. Maybe it's just that my lungs have developed and expanded, because my shoulders are a lot more broader than they used to be. And maybe it just develop a stronger physicality to having that type of endurance that I don't necessarily see them as panic attacks anymore, but more of just shocks. And then my breathing is a lot different. So the average person wouldn't notice that about me, or nor the way that I sing. And so that's why when I write my songs according to the way that I breathe. And so I know this sounds crazy, but it sounds like something out of a movie. But yeah, that's exactly how I write. And in this episode 10, I want to just do a book review of everything we talked about so far, on the course of life. Just doing a little review, my personal review, and how it appeals. And, I have some stuff written here that I'm just going to share with you guys that I've written off and reviewing. Just usually different for me, because usually I tend to like just talk, but I'm going to try to stick to it, guys. Just try to stick to it. I don't like the whole fact of just editing and just throwing stuff at you guys, but I just want you guys to know that this is the authentic Kingsley here, and giving my heart, and I want you guys to know that this episode 10, is a major one for me. We came a lot of ways. A lot of stuff is going on. We have the biennial national convention here in the Bahamas of the Church of God of Prophecy this week, on starting Wednesday, ending on Sunday the 16th. And we have two ministers of the gospel, Christine Saunders, who's going to be installed as senior pastor here for Church of God Prophecy, where I'm from, and then my adoptive father, spiritual father, you would say, Deacon McCauley, who's going to be installed as a associate pastor, and then we're going to have that ceremony here on April 6th. A lot of stuff is happening on the island where they're showing elevation and the process of what it takes to get to elevation. But during that process, there's been a lot of cost there's been a lot of cost, and that's one of the things where I talked in chapter 6. We talked about walking in faith and in trust. It's not an easy road. Like this, when you look at the costs, a lot of the times you just want to run and never come back. You never want to do anything. And my last chapter of the book was talking about walking in salvation, and chapter 7 was crucial because it's like, now it's a call to action. It's calling to receive a light that doesn't take away from you. A lot of people always get stuck on this whole thing of this denominational thing where we're so consumed. I go to the Church of God of Prophecy because I grew up going there with my parents, and it's always been my home church because of the memories and relationships. The people who attend Highway Church of God have stories similar to that, as well as them. Some of those persons who would have gone there because of church hurt in the past and stuff like that, and wanting to be in a place that they felt was safe, and also a place that not only propel women but also propel healthy relationships and healthier family lives, or whatever the case may be. That's probably why other people were left and went to other churches. But then not always, sometimes it shifted. Like, and one of the things I realized too is that every church needs money. Every church needs money because it's an organization that has to function. And if you want that organization to function really well, you have to have people on staff. In order for any organization to be sustained, to have sustainability, you need to have people on staff. You need to have people on staff because you need people who care about not just the order of service on a Sunday. You need people who care about the building, they care about the equipment, and advancing those equipment, and also care about the spot and the building so that it can be used as a venue that helps with community events or has some sort of functionality. And that also in turns brings in resources, brings in gifts and donations and stuff like that, because now it becomes a pillar in the community. It also acts as a shelter, a hurricane shelter, because it's newly built. It has to roam. It has the capacity to put beds and all this other stuff. So it's not just a place that, you could just be like, oh, it's a place, man, whatever. No, it has more to it. So it's other things that you could use it for, and you have access to use it for. You have to be willing and open to know that you have access, to use it at that level, And one of the things I always say is that I guess the hardest thing or the mainstream thing would be owning it, owning your light. And I'll touch more on that on my book that I'm going to release in this month. But owning your light is a serious thing. And but I want to cover chapter 7. This is episode 10. I love the fact that you guys are here, you're listening to this podcast. So let's just get right into it. So in my introduction, I talked about like how life isn't a straight path, It's filled with twists, turns, victories, and losses. Like everybody knows about that, right? Along the way, like we research for meaning, purpose, and love. This book is my story. Like, think about that. This is my story, my testimony, my journey with God. Through life challenges and moments of triumph, I've discovered that God has always been present. Like, he's always been present. Like, and that's one of the things that keeps on shaping me even now and refining me and calling me into a deeper relationship with him. Like, it's a spiritual high that takes time, but it's a joy. It's when the call was for me to relaunch into music, it's that whole thing. Like, this isn't just my story. It's a reflection of how God meets us where we are and leads us to where we need to be. And that's what took me to chapter 1. Chapter 1 for me was, the foundation of faith. Like, basically, faith begins as a seed planted in the soil of uncertainty. You guys remember that? You remember that one time when you try to do something? For me, it started at home with my parents. My father taught me the value of hard work and integrity. My mother showed me what it means to sacrifice for others. Their faith was quiet, yet unshakable. You know what it is to have that quiet faith but unshakable faith, rooted in the belief that God provides even in the most challenging circumstances. So as a child, I didn't always understand the depth of my commitment, but I grew. I mean, I realized they weren't just living in themselves. They were living examples of God's love and grace. My father's resilience, when I think of my father's resilience, like through hardships, and my mother's determination to uplift our family, laid the groundwork for my own walk with God. And that was chapter 1 for me. Chapter 2 was discovering purpose. That's, if you go through it all, it's that, I'm just labeling the way I would review my book. Discovering purpose. What sort of father would God be if he didn't love you? Would he be the kind of father who turns his back on his children? Or would he be the kind of father who pursues you relentlessly, even when you feel unworthy? He loves us. He is for us, and he is not against us. God's desire isn't for us to perish in the brokenness of this world, weighed down by sin and shame. His desire is for us to be set free. He longs for every single one of us to have an opportunity to come back to him, to draw close to his heart, and to feel security of his love, just like he drew me. He drew me back into his bosom. Like that's a power dynamic I'm very grateful for, because he wants to do the same for you. He wants to do the same for you. Life's purpose, let me say it this way. Life's purpose isn't always clear from the start. I just gotta let you know that. It is not always clear from the start. I found myself questioning my path all the time, like feeling lost and wondering if I had anything meaningful to contribute. Like, think about that. Me, Kingsley now, this gifted, musically talented singer-songwriter, book author, person that's a renaissance of love and love to create, love to help and cheer people on. Yeah, me having doubt. So imagine how many people just like me, just like you out there, that are having doubt. It was during these moments of doubt that God began to reveal his plans for me. And that's true music. I honestly, every time I think about this, I get chills. I discovered a gift that went beyond talent. Like, it was a calling to inspire, to worship, to bring people closer to God. That's why when I sing, people, they feel the dynamic in my voice. The dynamic in my voice is because I put everything into that. Everything that I've journeyed through to get to a place of where I'm back with God, and I'm going to stay back with God. Yes, I might have some things and I might make one or two mistakes, but those mistakes are not going to be consistent with my relationship with God. My relationship with God is going to be consistent. I'm going to wake up every morning thinking about him. I'm going to wake up pursuing the things that God has placed on my life. And I am very focused. Like, I know for sure that the journey wasn't without obstacles, like, because I'm experiencing a lot of those obstacles right now, like not having backing and the whole relaunch experience, and being met with a culture that is still trying to shut me out of the music, not inviting me to shows. They have my emails, they have my contact, they won't invite me, they won't book me, they just won't. It has nothing to do with my talent level. It just has to do with the fact that people just don't like you for no reason at all, they feel threatened of you being in the room. They don't realize that you being in a room is also going to be to their benefit to help their future expand and grow, because you have an entire audience that is not even connected to them. And they're trying to tap into that audience, and they will never tap into that audience until they welcome you into the room. And they don't know that. And that's one of the number one pitfalls that I have with Christian music. I've had that for as long as I've ever lived. I've seen it in the CCM industry with Christian music. I've seen it in the black culture gospel of Christian music. I've seen it. It just wasn't working. The only person I would say that tried to, or persons to try to change those dynamics a lot of times, was Toby Mac, Kirk Franklin, Lecrae, CeCe Winans, and maybe a few others like Shirley Caesar and a few others. Like those ones, for me, I felt like they were willing to not only shape the bonds and unite us on all fields, instead of trying to make it seem like we have to be either black or white in the way we present music. And I'm like, no, you just have to be you. You have to be the way God made you. And the music that he downloaded into your soul, as well as the songs that speak to your soul, you should be able to share those according to the gifts that he's given you to present to the world. And that's where I feel about it, And so we're all met with obstacles, but each challenge strengthened my resolve to trust God more, and more in a deeper way. So that was my chapter 2. I mean, when we go into chapter 3, it's like, it's lessons from the storm. Like you got some bruises. If you're like me, you never want to be ever again placed behind bars in a room that has an aroma that's so rancid, or holding cell that you feel like it's so cold that no life is in there. And I think it's intentional. It's intentional to break you, and it's intentional to get you to confess. It's intentional to get you to fear the consequences of your actions. And in all those instances, I was not in fear of the consequences of my actions, because I've already owned them. I've already accepted that there are consequences. But it wasn't that. It was just that the fact that my former employer assumed that it was necessary to do what he did to me, it just showed that there's a major lack of humanity. There's no, the level of humanity over value for material things are more important. Material things are more important when it comes to humanity. And maybe that level of humanity would only matter if it was his son or his daughter. Like if it was one of his sons or his daughter, then it would have shifted. If it was his wife, it would have shifted. So it's like, what if your kids steal from you? Like, what if your kid stole from you? Like, how do you deal with that? Do you lock them up too? And what if they said they're gonna sue you? Do you not try to sit down and actually have a actual real conversation with them, and not actually try to call them on the phone to get them recorded on the phone and bully them on the phone? Why don't you just send them an email to calm the situation down, so that then you can set up a meeting, you can have a conversation with them? Most people are not willing to do that because of their prejudices against other cultures. And me being black, him being white, him being from two different cultures, which is American, I'm from a culture that's Bahamian. So the assumptions are vastly different. So it causes us to put ourselves in these scenarios where, we get angry, we say some things that we truly probably might not end up living by. But then he got angry, assuming that without giving me a chance, I mean, I went to pursue whatever I needed to pursue. But still to this day, the company is not, they fired me. But the company, I have not been able to claim any sort of unemployment benefits because of what they did. Even though I corrected that situation and had to go to the courts to do that, according to what they wanted to be done. But still to this day, On the Bahamas side and on the company side, I've not been honored in the fact of that being taken care of. So people assume that I made out good. I didn't. You know, if anything, they not only ruined me in the being blacklisted in a way, but they also ruined me in being like in my character being questioned like forever because people hold that against you. And so that's the part there in chapter 3. So, the storms of life test our faith and reveal our true character. For me, the storm came in the form of personal losses, financial struggles, and moments of deep uncertainty. Think about that. I learned that faith isn't about avoiding hardships, but enduring it with grace and trust. God never promised the road would be easy. He promised to walk with us every step of the way, through every storm. He was my anchor. I mean, I'm just honestly, you know what it is to be in a place and this still small voice says to you, be still and know that I am God. Like, just be still. It means that I didn't have to do nothing. Everything that happened had nothing to do with me. Me not having to go to jail, the charges against me not being charges anymore, so it's not on my record. So all this stuff had nothing to do with me. I just was still throughout the whole process. I didn't say I wasn't angry. Didn't say that I didn't have moments where I wanted to post on social media and say some things and stuff to that effect. Because I know both of us were angry. Me and my former boss was angry. Both of us were angry. I think both of us were angry at each other. Both of us were angry, but he more so angrier than me because of the way he pursued this. And I think he pursued it out of hate, out of the fact that it happened to him. So God was my anchor, reminding me that his plans are greater than my fears. And that's what you have to remember from this. In chapter 4, building spiritual resilience. Resilience is the ability to keep going when everything inside you wants to quit. This chapter reflects on the moments when I had to dig deep, find strength in God, and trust him. Trust him. Trust his timing. Trust when he said to move. The lessons weren't easy. Sometimes it felt like I was taking one step forward and two steps back. You guys know that feeling? But every step, no matter how small, every part of God's process, it's like God was there. God's process is different from ours. We always try to put God in the box. I heard Stephen Furtick talk about like God broke the law for love and stuff like that, and all these other persons coming out of the woodwork saying, no, God didn't break the law for love. God fulfilled the law for love. Or something like that. And every time I read that one portion when it said God so loved the world, it always talk about like it's almost like a past tense. Like God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten. I say, so love is always, it says loved. It doesn't say God so loved the world. Like it doesn't say God so loved the world. Like this is still something that's so consistent with who he is. It say God so loved the world. Like he did this back then when he loved the world. So it kind of put that in the past tense as if like there's a possibility that God fell out of love with the world. Like, like Jesus was the only reason why he did what he did to restore that love, to restore that connection to us, to atone us from our sins, to atone us from this deep end of darkness. And so anyway, so try not to get too deep into that. But my whole point is that we get so caught up in that stuff, but we never truly, dig deep. But sometimes like it felt like, you're back and forth and you're trying to move forward and you're just like, man, how long is this going to be like this? But every step, no matter how small, was part of God's process. That's why I was saying, like, God's process is different. Ours is, we keep on trying to measure these things through prayer, worship, and unwavering faith. I began to see God, and God was shaping me into something more, like someone who could withstand life's challenges and emerge stronger on the other side. Because there is the other side of this. There's the light. I mean, we have our spots, but there's the light. Yes, we step into the light and all our spots show, and we're terrified because, we're going to get attacked with shame and stuff like that. But this is what takes me into chapter 5, walking by faith. Walking by faith. But, I think in chapter 5, I said it much differently than this, but this is really the theme, like, not by sight, but I didn't really use that. I just wanted us to kind of gather the depths of what it means to walk by faith and just really have meaning for it. Walking by faith means trusting God even when the path ahead is unclear. This chapter dives into what it means to rely on Him completely, even when the answers don't come right away. Like, I have answers and I still haven't received them. I had to step out of my comfort zone. You know how many times I had to do that, especially with working on Jay's project. It takes risk. I'm risking a lot. I'm everything I've earned have basically been gone into this whole project and trying to get this project finished and completed, and trust that God would provide, and He has provided, and it has been in increments, but He's been providing. Like, I see those increments, and I'm grateful for those increments. Most people are not content about those increments. They want more. I want the millions too, possibly billions, but I don't want the millions and billions just for the normal person who just wants to live lavishly. I want to do more. I want to be able to do more to help more young persons that were handicapped from other people around the world. Other people around the world who felt threatened by their horizon. Other people around the world who were so dogmatic in not understanding that if we all succeed, that's more resources coming in that can feed all of us. But if only you succeeding in your corner, that's insufficient resources for you to have a sustainable future. If it's only you succeeding, then it's that sustainable future is okay for a little while, but then it's not going to be good for long term, because you have no sustainable future without a village. And don't matter if you create your own group of a village and say, "Oh, we're going to have sustainable future." It's still going to be uncertain because you're not diversified enough. And that means that you don't have this person on your team that you don't like, but if they're not on your team is not going to be successful. You might not like that person, and maybe that person challenges you in ways which you don't want to be challenged. But I'm telling you this is where we have to get over ourselves and step into those risks that God has put in front of us and trusting Him. And whether it was creating music, reaching out to others, or simply taking steps. Like I wrote some letters and stuff like that, and people used and said I was trying to scam people. I was trying to raise funds. I literally was trying to submit to the Grammys and go to the Grammys. So trying to get my album done. That didn't even happen. And then I think some persons was trying to use it to say that they were going to get the funds to me. Those funds never came to me. So I don't know who was doing that or what was happening with that, but I know what my intentions were, and my intentions were very pure. I have friends who won't even communicate to me right now. I don't even know what's going on with that, but it's the weirdest thing. All I know is that at the end of the day, they have whatever opinions they have for me. I don't know them. We haven't really talked about those things. That's on them. They stand to gain whatever they stand to gain. But I know for one sure thing, I'm here in Great Albuquerque and I'm trying to rebuild my community through the gifts that I have. And when I take off, I'm for sure I'm going to make sure my community is going to be looking good. I don't care what nobody else thinks or says about me at this point, because I know my heart and I know my passion for this community. I know my passion for these youths. And that's why I don't go to certain events. I don't go to a lot of stuff because the stuff is not working. Why are we just having activities? We spend all this time having activities, but these kids have no wide sustainable future. What are they gonna do? Get out and get a construction job? If they're not gifted at that, they're just gonna be taken out because they don't have hope. You know what I mean? Like, what are they gonna do? I mean, what are these kids gonna do? I can teach them engineering. I can teach them about engineering. I can teach them about filming. I could teach them about writing. I could teach them about a lot of things outside of this small community, so that their visuals about life and expansion could be expanded so beyond here that when they get out, they get invited to places like NASA, they get invited to record labels, they get invited to TV stations, they get invited to companies where they end up becoming the marketing president or something like that, or they get to sit on boards for new companies that are going to start up, because they're the generation that's going to be probably walking into that after us millennials get up there in age. Like, you know, we're all should be either on the clutch or on the edge of something great, but we have to do this together. And if we don't start doing it together and thinking on that stage of where it's like, if we expand using the best of what we have and all of those persons, making sure, including all those persons, how are you going to have stage hands when you go on tour? Like, who goes on tour and you got to hire an American company to go on tour? That American company is going to charge you out of the wazoo, and nobody knows who you are. You don't have no experience in touring, but then you want to take your group and go on tour. But you won't have no experience. You could be Grammy nominated, but you don't have no experience what it means to be on a consistent road on tour. And then when you finally meet that experience and you realize that it's not so much of a joy on it. It's not so much of a joy because you still don't have a complete team. When you go on tour, you're supposed to have everything. You're supposed to have the staging company. That should be some people that you know that you work out of the Bahamas with. You should have a staging crew, technicians. All those persons supposed to be a part of the same society that you come from, or around that basis. And then you have your international friends, and then you involve them. You spread it so wide that then this thing ends to blow up, because you're not only providing for your family, you're providing for other families. And they realize how important it is for this thing to be a success, because it means a success to their pockets and then also their future. So you can't be selfish. You got to look beyond yourself. You can't be all about trying to do this alone. Even in moments of doubt, his presence was a constant reminder that I was never walking alone. And I have to remind you about that. I have to say that again. Chapter 6. Now, my review is like the whole beauty of surrender. This is walking in faith and in trust. You know, that's my book, you know, and stuff like that. We talked about that just recently. And so basically, surrendering to God isn't about giving up. It's about giving to his will. This chapter explores letting go of control allowed me to experience his peace and power in my life. And some of you might read that a little differently, because I talk about walking in faith and in trust, but you are relinquishing that power dynamic, because a lot of us like to take the wheel, you know. And I crack a joke in the last thing about, you know, Jesus taking a wheel. You know, actually, I probably didn't even talk about that, but chapter 6 really deals with the whole fact of Jesus taking a wheel. Like, basically, it wasn't easy to release my fears and anxieties, but as I did it, I saw how God was working behind the scenes, like, and he was opening doors. I mean, breaking down walls. I mean, mine and many others in my community. And also just allowing my mind to transcend on a different playing field. Like, buddy, let me tell you something. If you are not working with me and you think I have something against you or something like that because you're not hearing from me and we ain't talking or whatever, and I message you no more, let me tell you something. I am in a different playing field. Like you might have to call me and find out what's going on with me, because my heart is filled with joy right now. I'm focusing on what the mission is that God gave me, and using my story to inspire others. And that's why I'm doing this whole podcast. I'm not doing this to be seen or to make this popular. Let me tell you something. I could be speaking in front of stadium audiences in the Bahamas, and I guarantee you people will listen to me. I guarantee you that half of the radio announcers that are on the radio right now, every single one of them would listen to me if we were in a meeting room. Because it's not just because of my background or what I have and the wealth of knowledge that I have. It's just the fact that I'm a person that can meet people exactly where they are. If you're an intellectual, I can meet you on that level, because I can go there. But I try not to in a lot of spaces, because it's hard for people to meet truth and they're able to accept it beyond their habits of belief. And yeah, we talk about all that in my other podcast. You don't have time to talk about it now, but because I got to keep it rolling, I got to keep it rolling. The whole point I'm making here is that the beauty of surrender is that it allows God to work in ways we could never imagine. And you got to just have that liberty. You got to have that joy. And that's why I'm saying, like, the relaunch process was not easy. It still isn't easy. Like, I know for me right now, in order for me to get this one project off, I need about 75,000 just to get Jason stuff to where it needs to be. I need 75,000 to get our Cardenas stuff to where it needs to be. For my project, it's going to cost me 1.5 million or more. But the resources I learned, and I had to accept it and just say, God, well, let me surrender this and walk it through. And so I've been using what I have. Like, I've been maximizing what I have, like, ridiculously. And I've been trying to educate the ones that don't understand this. I'm trying to teach them this, because look, if you don't have the resources to pay 10,000 to 250,000 or let's say 50,000 to 250,000 a song in the studio, you need to have something where you can build your music. Utilize the platforms that are there. You have Spotify, you have iTunes, you have DistroKid, you have all those other platforms like all the other ones that a lot of people use and stuff like that. That platforms that distribute music and stuff like that. Reverb Nation, whatever you have, you have all those SoundClouds. You have a lot of these outlets that you can use, and it's a beauty in it because it allows you to put your music out there, and you're putting your music out there and you're realizing that, whoa, people are actually listening to my music and they're taking time. Like, I didn't realize that people were going to listen to my music, and I didn't realize people were playing my music. When I found out that people were listening to my music, I said, well, geez, I have about more than 100 people listening to Love and Worship that are not streaming it on Spotify. They're just playing it readily on their phones because they have the music downloaded, because I shared it. And I realized that I was like, well, gee, if these people are listening to this song at least once a week or whatever the case may be, or throughout the week, and then I found out from the teens how much times that they were listening to it and they loved the song and they was playing it. And then I looked at the number of streams, I looked at the number of contents, and I look online, then I look in comparison to what was out there. I was like, well, gee, but within less than 2 months, Freddie crossed over the 5,000 threshold on streams, basically. But if you go on Spotify just shows that it's probably, I probably in a lifetime on that song has probably been close to 3,000 on Spotify itself. Close. It's gonna break that. I know for sure it's gonna break that 5,000. But we're now March, so I probably would have to do like at least 5,000 streams per month. But I'm pretty sure with the music that's going to be released, it should get to that point. But the whole point I'm saying is that you have to surrender. And that's what leads me to chapter 7. Like, if you're in a place of darkness, why not surrender to a place of light? And so in chapter 7 is a call to salvation. It's really walking in salvation. And my review, I call it a call to action. And I basically talk about this chapter as a call to salvation, to transformation, and to a renewed commitment to God. It's an invitation to reflect on your own journey, to recognize God's hand in life, and to take the next step in faith. I mean, whether you're just beginning your work or your walk or whatever it is, your journey with God, and you've been on this journey for years or something like that, this is just a reminder that his love never changes. You know, we always think that because we made mistakes that he loves us less. He's always there. He's always calling us closer. I mean, why would, if we're saying the Jesus story is true, then that means God wants a closer relationship with us, and and asking us to trust him more and guiding us to his perfect plan. And if you don't think his plan is perfect, I would say, take a step back and look at all the plans that you set. And imagine with me all your plans succeeding. All your plans succeeding and you being successful. Would you ever need a hope in God at that point? Would you never ever want to have a hope in God? And then think back about how many times you've had successful days where you wake up, you breathe, you're able to walk, you're able to move around, you're able to mobile, you're still able to talk. Some people are able to come back into consciousness. Some people have lost other abilities about them, but they're still a part of society and they're still doing the best that they can. Some people have dealing with depression and anxiety, but they're still survivors. They're still pushing through their stress and anxiety. Who do you think is that hand, like that invisible hand that's doing all this? It's God. It's his nature. He created you in his image. Everything that's about you has been made in his image. And you're beautiful. You're amazing. You're handsome. You're strong. You're mighty. You're fierce. You have the authority. You can build from nothing and become successful overnight. There is no limit. There is no limit. So, and in my conclusion, let me just give some nuggets here. As I look back on my journey, I'll tell you this. I'm overwhelmed with gratitude for all the people who've poured into my parents, especially my parents. Oh my gosh, my parents. My family, my church family, my adopted families. If I don't call her name, she probably come and find me, Pastor Shirley. The Macaulays, the Sanderses, the Edgecombs, the Ramseys, the Dr. Byer, Mr. Glendenning, the Hagwoods. I'm just thinking of all the people who've poured into my life, like who helped me to become a better man. And if I didn't mention your name, it's not because I didn't know you, but I do remember the Keatons. Daniel being one of my closest friends with like CJ and one of my other friends from the Bahamas and some of my other female friends. I do remember those relationships. And countless others have been a source of encouragement and inspiration. Most of all, I'm just grateful to God for his unending love and grace. I mean, that's the number one thing. Like, this book is a testament of his faithfulness, a celebration of goodness, and a reminder that he is always with us. Thanking you for joining me. Like, I thank you. Like, you made it this far, episode 10. Like, I pray this book helps you build deepen your relationship with God, and to trust him, and to just unburden yourself a little bit more. with your life, the stuff that's going on that you're dealing with, and you're not going to have all the answers, because I'm going to address that in one of my other books, and but here's some key takeaways that I was gonna just leave. These are just short nuggets, and I'll just leave. God's presence in uncertainty. He's there in uncertainty, and that's one. The beauty of small steps. That's two. So there's beauty in small steps. Three, waiting builds strength. So I know I say this and stuff like that, but we're always building that part. We're always building that part of the journey. Four, faith over feelings. That is a tough one. That is a tough one, because you're being asked to take some major risk. Five, renewed mind, renewed heart. I'm telling you this. I'm telling you this. If you need therapy, get it. If you need a friend, get it. Don't be out there being single if you were purposely created to be married. I mean, I'm just being straight up serious. And go the biblical route. Like, do not do the whole secular foolishness and stuff. That really go the biblical route, because that will be the closest relationship that you'll ever have with God. And the way you honor that relationship would be the way that you honor God, because that would be the first level of worship that you have to protect, is your family. And then salvation as the ultimate goal, like salvation in all the areas of your life. Most people think when I say salvation, I'm talking about just one particular area of your life. I'm talking about all the areas of your life. And I just wanted to highlight that for you guys just to take home. So listen, be encouraged. Be encouraged. I'm right now in my room. I'm in the Barry Islands. I could hear the waters from the ocean not too far from my home touching the beach. I can hear the birds chirping. I can hear people walking around in my parents' homes, which is probably my mom somewhere walking around somewhere here. Yes, I'm 40 plus, and I'm not in my own house. It's a little different for me because I want to do a lot of things, and with traveling and back and forward and not having a family, I haven't really been forced to push to that other part of that giftings that I have. But I'm hoping that with the Love and Worship album, God will just provide, and see how it goes. Like, I don't really know how it goes. I just know that sound needs to be released, and I don't need to hold it up any longer than it is. And I know I cracked a joke about waiting until Lecrae drops his album, but I'm telling you, I know for sure that it needs to be released. And I know that there's friends who are going through some stuff, and people who I love are going through some things. And people who I love have visited some things, and they're walking their own journeys. And right now for me, I just want to get to, I know I'm at a higher sensitivity level spiritually, dynamically. But I also know that during this process of being there, I've also made some mistakes, and I'm trying to not get back. I'm already there. I think those mistakes were lessons for me in order for me to realize how quickly I can self-sabotage, or how quickly I can lose the blessings that were bestowed upon me. And I learned I had to wait, and that lesson was instant. Like, it was like an instant lesson. Like if you never had a situation where your accounts were blocked, or things were taken, or you were disadvantaged or something like that. If you never had a situation like that in your life before, where you had to wait, and it happens only because of your playfulness, your being misdirected and unfocused. If you're not experienced that, trust me, you don't want to. So stay on the right path. And I'm saying that from experience, that You want to be on the right path and become better stewards. And one of the things, I mean, Jesus's number one thing was always about being a good steward, a good steward about your soul, a good steward with your family, a good steward with your children, a good steward with the church. He's always talking about being a good steward, like being good to your neighbor. All these things are talking about stewarding your gifts, stewarding this, stewarding that. And, with my loan, that's with the my student loan with the bank and credit card debt and stuff like that. I think about those things. And I'm like, as a believer, where I'm at now, where we're launching with music, the music does have to bring in fruits that I can tackle these issues, because these issues will bounce back. And, if I take off publicly and something like that, these issues will bounce back. These would be things that people talk about. How could he talk about this and stuff like that? And he has this. I'm like, all of us have something. Me, I'm just talking about it because it's not something that could still be in my closet. As a believer, as somebody who's exposed, as an exposed person, I would be silly to think that people aren't talking about this. People aren't pointing fingers. People aren't using this as a way to imprison me or to enslave me. And as an entrepreneur, that's one of the hardest things, and you don't just want to take any job. You don't want to just jump on a workforce, and now your dream is being to the wastelands. And then you're being promised, oh, no, you still have time for that. You just have to do that at night. At night when? When I have to go to sleep? So am I going to sleep? And then how is that even better for me if I'm not sleeping, properly? If I'm not sleeping properly and I'm trying to do all these things to achieve all these goals, that's going to backfire. I'm going to have bad practices with that. And I was like, no, I don't want to do that. I mean, I know this is a struggle. I know what it meant when I did it in Virginia for 2 years, and I just didn't pay myself. I just invested everything I made back into whatever. And I know what that sacrifice mean, and I'm basically doing the same thing now. The only difference is it's not just me and 4 other band members. It's me, 2 artists, a whole youth group, and my family, and outstanding things that are on a waiting list. But I know those things have to be addressed. And then people will be like, man, just go and get a day job, work that job for like a year or so, and then knock it off, and then you're done. I'm like, that's easy for you to say because you believe in wasting your time. I don't believe in wasting my time. I believe that every single thing that I'm doing right now, is propelling, even if it saves one youth, if it saves someone from dying at a desk, if it saves a relationship, if it causes someone to come to Christ and to know Jesus in a new form way, and to really understand God and really understand the gospel, and knowing what the gospel really truly meant, then I know I'm actually fulfilling my purpose. And if I die without ever, selling 1 million records or having 1 billion streams and billions of streams, check this out. Here's the cool thing. I was watching Akon unbox his Spotify awards for reaching the magnitude of 1 billion streams, and he had like 2 of those, and I don't even know if he had 3 or 2 of those, but I was just like, man, wouldn't it be cool for me to get like 1,000 billion streams on Spotify for one of her worship songs, or one of her songs that I've written that comes out of the Bahamas, to actually get like, way over 1 billion streams and on Spotify, and to have that sort of influence in the lives of people, and putting out positive music and stuff like that. And then because I was thinking about it, I said, what I'm doing is probably not a thing right now, but eventually it's going to become a thing. It's almost like Skillet. It's almost like Skillet. Like, I love Skillet from Skillet first came out, from Skillet first started doing music. I was always in love with Skillet. Skillet was like, when I said rock bands, there was like rock bands that was like not just positive. It was like, but it was Christians, and I knew they were Christians, and I just loved the fact that whenever they did a show, they dumped. There was no rock band that wasn't doing what Skillet was doing. Skillet is just that these fellas, they own the stage. That skill level, that's practice, but then they just have this positive side of music that they shared. When they were doing that, everyone's doing grunge and all this emo and all this other stuff, and these guys doing positive rock and roll music. And I was just like, you know what, these guys are amazing at what they do. And I just kept on saying, like, eventually they're gonna catch on, they're gonna blow up, and it's gonna become a thing. But back then, people were probably like, oh, they have girls in the band, I ain't supporting that. They got girls in the band. Oh, they got this in the band, I ain't supporting that. They have this in the band. And now everybody's showing up like, oh, I'm supporting them because they got girls in the band. I was like, remember the days when people were like not going to their shows, you know, or saying something weird about it, as if they had less talent. My point is that when God gives you a sound to produce and put out there in the world, you don't know what audience is waiting for you to share that sound and for you to fulfill your purpose. I have a purpose in life, and yeah, my dad and my mom might want me to become a pastor in some bishop or some church, and then I have friends in Nassau who probably want me to run for government or prime minister or something like that in the next 7 years or 10 years next 10 years from now. And I look at them and I say to them, I say, well, although all those are possibilities, if they're not what God wants for me and where I need to be with meeting that audience as an ambassador of love, I'm not walking into any roles that will cause me alienate the audience of people that God sent me to reach. And I know right now it's the baby steps, it's the small steps, and that's just, you know, when his presence is in your life, it's almost like that Job thing, like just the whole lessons in the Job story. The lessons in the Job story is that you can't see God physically, and then his omnipresence, even though it's vast, there are decades and years when you will go through your life and your journey where you can't even feel him. You won't feel him near you. And you will believe that he has literally forsaken you. And that's the hardest fate walk to have with him. And I'm touching probably a little bit on my other book right now. So let me back off of that. But I implore you to read The Course of Life. I implore you to read Kingsley Kase, Beyond Servitude. I implore you to read those books. I also implore you to read the other books I'm going to be releasing. I just implore you to step out and step in to the promise that God has for you, and whatever means it means. And if you're single and you're around my age and you're wondering, oh, well, nothing has ever worked out of a marriage. Let me tell you, marriage is a beautiful thing. When you have two people who come together in unity and under God and in love and are focused and stuff like that, marriage is a beautiful thing. When there's understanding. But when it's not met with understanding, but met with a demand and met with when it's systematic, what is going to happen is that systematicness is always going to need an approval. And when it doesn't qualify or it fails, the marriage will also fail, because the marriage was not built on anything substantial, not on personalities, not on love, not on character, and not on commitment. And commitment is the number one thing you have to have in order to maintain a marriage. I should know because I've been there twice, officially once, but twice. I was a young kid, didn't know what I was doing, but second time I was there. And that was a difficult situation because, You know, honestly, I think clinically wise, um, that individual needed consistent therapy, and that's where I didn't realize that based on based on the medication that they were taking when they were young, like Zoloft and all this other stuff that damaged their brains and stuff like that, um, and their thinking pattern. Hopefully, her brain is fully recovered and repaired itself. But I always thought our family should have sued the medical pharmaceutical companies because of what they did. Because she'd have won, man. Like she definitely would have won because she had nerve endings that were like they were just damaged because of the medication that they were giving her. Um, and so, but the truth is, I said all that to say is that I do have some experience in that department. Does that scare me from ever pursuing love again? No, I'm not scared about pursuing love again. I know what it requires of me as a man, as well as I know what it requires of me as a husband and also as a God disciple, like someone who's a disciple of love and an ambassador of love. And so I just wanted to say thank you so much for all my supporters, everyone who's watched the Love and Worship music videos with me and Jay. We're going to be working on another music video coming soon. And hopefully we get to drop some new music this month. If all goes well, new music would drop this month. So we're just praying for that effect. And I also will be introducing a new artist in April. Jason is a new artist, but also another artist. She's been around. She's there. She's really good. Dana, I'll introduce her, and also hopefully I'll start having more interviews with other friends who would be able to join on the podcast. So if you guys have suggestions or who I should bring on a podcast or who you would like to hear from on a podcast, people who are my friends or people who I've worked with in the past before, please don't let it be anyone that that I might have a misunderstanding with. Like that would be weird and awkward. But it might make for a really good show though. It might make for a good show. But if you have any suggestions on that, I'll reach out to those persons. You can inbox me at kingsley@kingsleycase.com, or you can write me at booking@kingsleycase.com, or you can reach out to kingsleycase@gmail.com, and reach out to me in reference to suggestions on who I should bring on the show, who I should interview, what friends of mine that you would like to hear from, which producers, or who would you like me to interview, whether it be Toby Mac or be Elon Musk, or whether it be George Soros or whoever it is, or President Trump, or Prime Minister Brave Davis. Who would you like for me to interview, and what sort of questions would you want me to ask them? And I'll bring them on the podcast. I'll do the best I can to get them on the podcast and reach out in that fair. But other than that, I'm telling you, I'm excited. We've gotten this far. I'm going to keep on going. I'm going to keep on dropping the podcast out. And I just hope that it continues to be a blessing and a resource. Just for the young persons who have listened through, I don't want you guys to get discouraged. I know some of you all are ready at a place where you want to experience life. Let me show you something, and then here's a reality. And I won't be too long on this because I want to kind of savor this whole moment and celebrate episode 10. I remember in the past when I was growing up as a kid, I knew teenagers that were getting married between the ages of 17 and 18, straight out of high school and stuff like that. And to this day, they're still married. Some of them who I know got married, then they're still married. I also knew some who participated in getting pregnant and all this other stuff that were robbed of them individually pursuing goals, or guys who ended up having kids and stuff like that. and both parties were affected. The guy who either had a basketball scholarship started to struggle. The young lady who had a modeling career going for her, lost that and ended up having to work for a casino company and a hotel and stuff like that. And one of the most beautiful persons I've ever met. And still smart, still intelligent, still has amazing promise. And if I ever had to give chance to people or chances to people, I would give chance to someone like her, because her future was robbed, you know, and taken advantage of in a way, because there was not enough sufficient provisions made to propel her, and she's a model. She's always been a model, always beautiful. So which means I know she's gonna have beautiful kids. So I would, however everything takes off, whether I become multi-millionaire or whatever the case may be, whatever resources come in my life, I literally mean this. I'm gonna make sure that my community, first my family, my adoptive family, my community, and then my friends for sure. Making sure my friends, like the real ones, and the people that I know that look to me for answers and look to me to help them through thick and thin, or help them, do some things. Like I remember when she had came to us and we were in the club. This is back in the club days, y'all. So let me just be straight up. I had some club days back in the club, and she was opening up about her life story and talking about it, but she was talking about ways of where she could get assistance and help, and she had goals. She still had dreams of doing some things, and the problem I have is that I know we were ignored when we were in high school by her. We were overlooked by her, blew off by her. And I will tell you this, that sometimes when money comes into play and individuals see that you have financial backing and you can help them, everybody shows up for a helping hand. And I'm like, when it's someone like that, that that you could really help, you should help them. Regardless of whatever happened or whatever, regardless of however that was for you, how they overlooked you and mistreated you should help them. One of my good friends from high school, actually we used to sing together. He's very successful. If anything, he might end up running for, governor of the Bahamas or something like that someday. And he would need good people on his staff. He would need good people who can protect him from the attacks that would come to him. And he has always been a genuinely honest, good person, and went about things the right way, regardless of his lifestyle, regardless of what lifestyle he chooses or anything. I'm just being straight up. He's still also a God-fearing person. And I believe that, if I had to run, if I had to do something like that, I'm not saying I will. I'm saying if I had to, I would definitely reach out to him for him to be my running mate on the team, because he definitely is someone that I would consider that would not only have the voice, but has to study the background and understands what's actually going on in our economy. And I know a lot of the principal things that I stand up and said, but I still stand with this when I say that just because everything is trending right now, things were a lot different when our parents were being in relationships and stuff. You've seen how they struggled. You've seen what they've gone through. You don't want to go through that. But if you do fall in love with someone, maybe they're older than you. I can't tell you who to love and who not to love. Maybe they're older than you. Maybe they're younger than you. If you do fall in love or whatever it is, I would ask you to just still make sure that that person values and supports you, that your goals and that person's goals maybe might not always like line up, but they flow together. Like there is a flow. Like there's something about you two that nobody can get in between. That's how great and amazing that bond is. And I think once you have that, regardless whether or not you have babies while you're in college or not, the relationship is always going to flourish because you're still answering the gospel. You're still according, you're still being fruitful, you're still multiplying, but you're still growing together. And the way that relationship would succeed, people won't understand it. They won't fathom why you want to stay home for 2 years and you're okay with being provided for, and then you get up after taking care of the kids for like 2-3 years and being home, then you go on the road and you start doing business and you start shutting down things and doing all kinds of things that you want to do. And people are like, whoa, how is this possible? It's because you're a part of a bond. You're a part of something that is not a love sickness. It's something that is a love of delight, something that propels you, something that helps you grow. And so, and a lot of people talk about this thing. Like you could be the guy who take care of the kids too, and they're at home. You just start a whole podcast. You become the businessman, and then you travel on the weekends to do your music things or something like that, or you go to the studio, and then next thing you know, you have all these kids who are engineers. They're super engineers because of you, because of your giftings and stuff like that. They're able to do way beyond that you ever could possibly imagine. And some of them might end up working for world governments or world organizations. And based upon the technology that's available, with the resources that you need, more than likely you would build your own AI. You'll build mechanical devices that will operate and serve themselves, and also the entities that earn you not just value but monetary gains that you can help your family and also better serve your community. And that's the whole purpose of life in a way, because against all the wars that are happening with Ukraine and Russia right now, that's a lot of uncertainty. Against whatever is going on in South Africa right now, which is kind of nuts and crazy for us to still be seeing stuff like that's coming back to surface. That's a retaliation of the past, but it wasn't right back then, nor is it right now, no matter which side is doing it. But it still begs to say that we cannot allow the past to go unnoticed, because in order for us to propel and move forward, we have to take account from the actions that we've done, and we have to respond to those actions. And so the appropriations that need to be done in that light probably have never been settled. And we have to be honest about that. In America, appropriations haven't been settled. That's the truth. Because if appropriations were settled in America, every African American that suffered, their generation suffered through slavery, as well as apartheid, would be taken care of. And I mean, there's just a lot of stuff that hasn't happened. And whether people want to accept that and be like, oh, I shouldn't have to be forced because yes, you should. Yes, you should. Just how you hold a murderer accountable for a murder. Like, let's give this example. My family, let's say someone's family, came from a family of murderers who got away with murder. They knew their family came with it from. The rest of the public finds this out. Who is going to pay retribution for all that? And appropriations for all this stuff? That family. And if that family benefited from all those murders and they became wealthy and rich or whatever the case may be, more than likely the government would take away that wealth. They would intervene and almost stripped that family away from it, even though they weren't be the ones that committed anything. They were just aware that it happened. They didn't disclose it. It's just the same way I would picture slavery as. And people always try to be like, oh, well, we shouldn't be. You're not being blamed. No one's saying it's your fault. No one's saying it's your fault. We're very clear and distinct that it's the ancestors' fault. We're addressing it and saying that it needs to be addressed. There's a consequence. And because those consequences have not been settled in action, you can pass all the policy you want to pass, but policy only creates more corruption. Every time you put another policy on a book, you create something else to say that X, Y, Z. If we could just start treating people equal and respecting people, on playing fields and respecting people, we can get past all this other nonsense. I'm not saying let's go and do this. I'm saying that that's a perspective that people needs to take a different lens to look at. And you can take all the lens and say, no, I shouldn't have to do this. I shouldn't have to. The fact that you're saying you shouldn't have to do it means the fact that you're still discounting the fact that it happened. And every time you discount the fact that it happened, you never take into account of what it means that if someone did it to your family. If African Americans end up ruling the world, which it looks like that's what a populist group or the elitist group is trying to stop right now, because African Americans are now becoming very more influential globally and empowered. And it looks like people of color are becoming more influential, not just in wealth, not just in riches, but also in power and authority. And because of that, it seems as if like there is a scheme to really alienate that group from ever reaching to such the higher states again, like how President Obama did, like how all the strings were pulled to make sure that he was limited when he was in office. That's why when he ran for a second term and he was there, he had to make sure that he taxed the rich, because the same people that blocked him or was trying to block him, he got back at them by getting into their wealth and digging into their assets that was offshore and overseas. And so being realistic now, a lot of this stuff is going to be repealed and how it's going to protect the rich and the wealthy, but is also going to protect the African Americans and people of African descent that's globally around the world that are now a part of that elitist group. And those who are a part of that elitist group are going to be protected. That's the perspective and has a lot of speculation. The point I'm making to you young people is that nothing is fixed. The only thing that is fixed right now is death and eternal life. Somewhere your soul goes. Your soul goes somewhere. You have a soul. I think science can define that as a soul. The heart would stop beating if the mind stopped working. The brain has activities and functions that it shows that there's some sort of spiritual element. And science is now at the point because there's quantum physics coming into play and quantum computers coming into play. I'm pretty sure eventually we will definitely have equipment where we can actually see souls. It's not the spiritual entities that we see on these videos and cameras and stuff like that sometimes pick these things up. Literally, systems in place that can see an individual soul and possibly see the elements in this world. So I don't want to scare you, but I'm looking forward to our next discussion. I'm looking forward to when we get back. This was the course of life. Closing off these 10 episodes on that. Beyond the Servitude is a nice Reader's Digest that you can read too, and short book that's really nice. This book that I'm going to release in this month, I'm hoping that you really take the time and read it out and hear me out and not get lost with your sole point of view and your purpose to defute the argument, but to really read throughout the book that I'm going to present. I'm presenting an argument that I hope will not shatter anything or seek to be this new post that
is going to be used around the world for protests. I'm presenting it so that each individual Christian and young youth and even scholars that are out there would start looking at the Bible truthfully and presenting that information of the way that they look at the Bible, to present it truthfully to the general public. And let's just stop the lies, and stop the things that we choose to hide, because ultimately the truth is, I mean, that's why a lot of these mega churches are making the money that they're making right now, because they know the truth. They know they done the research. They done the same logs that I've done. So that's why they teach the way they teach. And persons who haven't done the research and haven't dig as deep, continue to target them and attack them. But the ones who know that they're just doing it for the bucks and trying to come off as sincere and honest are just fooling us all. They're still pulling strings. But who's pulling their strings? Because they're making money on YouTube. What are you making? Nothing. You're watching it, So if you want to support them with millions of subscribers, I ask you to subscribe. If you're listening to this for the first time, subscribe to my YouTube channel. The more, the merrier. If I get 1,000 subscribers before May 4th, which would be the 1 year anniversary of my launch, even though I tried to start up doing music in 23, it was a process, but I first officially launched on May 4th, 2024. And we're going to continue it on May the 4th, 2025. So I'm looking forward to doing an anniversary performance. And hopefully that one might be live. We'll see how we can get it to do it live. But I'm looking forward to that experience with all of you. So stay tuned for that. Stick around. Thank you so much for supporting my channel. Thank you all for the comments on the Love and Worship music video. Thank you all for liking the views and listening to it. I know some of you might have listened to it with great scrutiny. I know some of you would have thought I was talking about you or talking about your business on the streets and addressing some very things. And I also saw how it was used, not necessarily against me, but used in a way that targeted my views and my points and stuff like that, and in the class that I was a part of. And I will definitely beg to also say this to that effect, is that these are discussions that if you're listening to my podcast and you want to comment. Make your comment known and let it known that it's you. Whether you believe or not, you're free to comment, and also I like to hear from my podcasters, the ones who listen and stuff like that, and know what's going on. And all of us are gonna have our views, but I'm always that guy that if something doesn't stand with what I agree with or something like that or whatever, I weigh whether or not I want to argue or even have that conversation. Just as an intellectual, I just try not to have that conversation. But people who I'm open with, or I'm free and I talk freely with about things and I'm very direct about, those are people I look to as family. So don't expect that to be everybody I do that with, but I am always authentic. You that's the one thing you can expect from me. And one thing with me, if it's there to be said, I'm going to say it. And it's not meant to hurt you or target you, but it's meant to address an issue that's saying that, look, there are a lot of people who have experiences that are not always welcome in the room, because we're only embracing the flash, only embracing who we see in front of us. But there are people who have so much wisdom and experience. I reach out to just about all the members in my church. I have a conversation with them. We talk. If we don't talk, we have some sort of dialogue. I have some sort of dialogue with them to know what's going on, their opinions on things or something like that. We talk. There are reasons why we do that, because I do it for growth. I do it because they have lived lives long. They're 20 years or more than me, and they've made mistakes. They could point me in the direction to keep me from making the mistakes that they made. If they've taken risk, I want to know why they took those risks and why they succeeded. If they've made very successful steps and there are things I need to honor and recognize about them, I'm going to do that. I communicate with them. This was one of the things whereas, I was targeted at a former church I used to attend, and I was targeted in a way where they assumed that there was no communication being, who are you communicating? Who you told? Who this? How you just got here? How you just whatever? And at that time, I was serving that church like 7 days a week, basically. It was like 7 days a week. I was Sundays, and then you have worship practices, and then funerals. Then you have weekday church meetings, and then you have youths, and then you have like other things, other activities that the church would have when they need the musician of the church to play and support it or whatever the case may be. And a lot of those things went without a stipend. The only stipend I received was on a Sunday for serving the church. And maybe sometimes you get whatever you received on a Wednesday night for serving the church. That was insufficient. That stipend, that couldn't even take care of my fuel for the week that I was pouring into the ministry. It couldn't take care of my fuel. So, in other words, the ministry was basically like suffocating my talents, hogging everything, but not propelling my talents in such a way that I benefited from it. So I'm woven into all these things at the strain of my resources, and there's no benefit for me ultimately, because after everything happened and I finally came and reached out, and they look at me like something was wrong with me. I better go back and go get one buying job or whatever the case may be. So for me, I was just like, bro, you know what? Let's just keep it real. That's how it is. So why are we selling what we selling on a podium? Why are we lying to people? Why are we making it seem like as if we are a place of hope and a place to help people, but we can't even help the people who served us? And I served them for like 3 years. I mean, I was serving like 100% of my time. And even at the strain of my relationship. And when she stopped attending and wanted to join another church, I stayed. I stayed because my service to my commitment and stuff like that. And that ruined us, man. That ruined us. And then we were just ruined because my relationship was dwindling anyways, because I was just like, you know what, at the end of the day, God is going to do whatever he's going to do. And if he wanted us to be together, we would be together to this day. And I'm not worried about that now. So peaceful about this now. But all I'm saying is that at the end of the day, we just got to get to a place where we're just being completely honest with people. We're not using the pulpit as a position to lie to people, to sell this dream, to sell a narrative that isn't true. It takes us, but it literally takes us doing this together without like nasty motives to strong arm people or to be powered over them or to treat them as slaves or treat them as if they don't mean anything. That's not how this works. If you want to be in a very successful environment, in a very pure environment, and one that is really awesome to work with and healthy and everybody wants to come, and people will start writing checks to that ministry. You know why people start writing checks from that ministry? Because they would see the results in the community, in the government. They will see the results in the people and also in the lives of the members. Every life of those members, a part of that community and that church, would be changed and drastically improved. And that's how you have to be as an individual. And once you're like that as an individual alone, it don't matter whether you are running a mega church or your own church. I tell you right now, I probably could pastor a church. No, I'm not saying this based on what's happening here at Prophecy. I'm not talking about Prophecy. I'm talking a non-denominational church. I'm talking about a non-denominational church. I probably could be a lead pastor at a church. And I'm telling you right now, I'll probably hands down be one of the best lead pastors the Bahamas has ever seen in its time, since Dr. Munro or any other leader you want to say, Neil Ellis, Bishops, Denzel, all the Thompsons, all the Fergusons, all the Lilio Charleses, since all that period, all the Bows, all the Mosses, all the Galeys. The reason for that is because of, not because of the pain or the resources I have. It's the fact that when I get up there, each of those members are going to know one thing. I'm going to be truthful. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I'm going to present the word that is pliable, that is edible, and that may not always be well received, but at least what they're going to get is the authentic word as it was supposed to be discovered and written. And also presented from a real perspective, that people are not lost in this figment of reality, and educating people and dealing with scholars and then hearing back from people, because then you're going to be in a situation where you have people of different lifestyles who sit in those pews. And even though my views will be different from theirs, I'm still going to have to be honest. But the way I'm going to be honest, I have to emphasize the fact that they are still God's children, ensuring them of what that significance is, and ensuring teachings and being so creative on how I teach subjects. And if you're not that creative, and stuff like that, and if you're not able to do those things like how my pastor and the newly installed associate pastor will be doing, and other ministers like my mom, my dad, and other people around the world, even the people I've mentioned, and even the current senior pastor of the former church I used to attend. He pours in, and every time he pours in, he tries to give real hard truths, as best as he can, according to the fellowship he's serving, But I know those pastors who are in those rooms with those boards, and they got to do this, and according to the board, and they got to have this according. Let me tell you something, man. I'm going to tell you one thing. Our board meetings would be the most fun and the best board meetings ever. You know why? Because we'll have the works. It'll be like we brainstorm, but it's like every time we meet up, it's like a party. It's a party of great minds, but it's a fellowship. And because the number one thing you have to understand about the church going forward in the future is that every structure that we're building right now is supposed to protect the generations after us. And if we're not putting structures in place to safeguard, to keep safety and, with a school and all this other stuff, we're going to ruin ourselves. Literally, we're going to ruin ourselves. And I'm not joking when I say that. We're going to ruin ourselves. And we're going to ruin it for the generations after us. We have to put structures in place to safeguard our people. So, thank you for listening. I went too deep. I said a lot, but this was episode. This was episode 10, and I was saying I was going to keep it real in 100. But I want to say, just to persons who are going through divorce, going through depression, going through body changes, the person's going through hard time in high school, persons who don't know what they want to do when they graduate high school, young ladies who are dealing with a lot of stuff emotionally, young boys who are dealing with stuff emotionally, who don't know what their plans will be or what they want to do. Young boys who have an opportunity to either follow in their father's footsteps, who are not 1,000% sure how they will succeed in that environment, in working for their dad and trying to succeed. There are a lot of things that you can do. But one of the things I would always say, yes, there are jobs here on this island, and a lot of jobs that are available on this island. But I want to position your mind to know that you are not limited to the jobs that are here on this island. Be a creator. Figure out a way to create new opportunities. And that's what I'm doing. I'm figuring out a way to create new opportunities. So the podcast takes off. I'm going to have to hire someone to manage and someone to probably sit down and edit it and do some stuff. I'm going to have to, hire a team, that helps me with deciphering with topics to talk about, or just, I still do it, still do the podcast with just me and maybe 2 or 3 other persons, but those would be persons now that would be considered a staff, and it will take a team, to keep it consistent and flowing. And then have somebody that controls my social media pages and all that other stuff, and building from there. That's work. That's opportunity. As the resources come in, there's opportunity. And people always be like, well, how do you know it's going to be consistent? There's no way to be well, you can be consistent at it. You can be consistent on what you do and what you offer. And that dynamic doesn't have to change. Unless something happens to you, people can still go back and replay the content that you've already released. After you've released about 52 podcasts a week, or or not 52 podcasts a week, but at least 52 podcasts a year, you can start off and go and do something else, every week. Or it could be 100 podcast episodes a year, or 200 podcast episodes per year. Whatever it is, something that captures your audience, something that reminds them to stay tuned in and buckled in, because they're always in for a ride with you. It doesn't always have to be a roller coaster ride, but this probably is going to be a spaceship ride, like a SpaceX ride, where you're going up, and a lot of people want to target Elon Musk and destroy and vandalize the vehicles. I'm like, the stuff you're doing, it makes no sense. It literally makes no sense. Like, you're being ineffective. You're not destroying his industry. You're not going to stop people from purchasing his car by vandalizing other owners who own vehicles of his brand. It just is really senseless. Even if he rebrands his vehicles and other companies now start selling those same vehicles through their companies by putting new brands on those companies, you're still at a loss. Because now he partners with all the companies, Honda and all those stuff, and then they still end up selling his vehicles. They just have a different brand name on it, So it's Tesla partnering with all these other companies now, which also could be a way of targeting. But then the lawsuits that are going to be against the people who are behind all these things and these protesters and these protesting organizations is going to come full circle. And we realize now that there's no protesting organization that's not funded from an outside or interested party. Every single protest organization has been funded from an interest party. So all those things will be addressed in our further dialogue. But I'm not saying that I'm entirely in support of anything that's just so partial and one-sided. I'm saying that we have to stop this nonsense where we're getting to a point where we have no humanity left. I think with Jason and working with Cardina and working with the church, my local church, home church, one of the things I always try to do is remind myself to have humanity. And another thing too is also to try to be very careful, because some people are very sensitive. They can't handle much of, they can't handle rebuke, they can't handle correction, they can't really handle instructions. And where I'm at musically and what I want to share with them musically and help them grow to that extension, it's difficult sometimes. It's like you're trying to get people to unlearn bad practices, and that's going to take time. And then you have people who want that to happen. You have the senior pastors and associate pastor and the other leaders who want to see this growth, but at the same time, it's like you really have to do it in increments. Like what's happening with SpaceX right now, people understand there's a reason why that's so important. And if you don't, if I keep on saying this, if you don't know what that reason is, you really need to do some research. Don't let me tell you what it is. This is something you have to do for you. As a person who lives here and is a part of the world, as a citizen of the world, there are things about life that you need to know about. And you could have this black or white perspective all you want, which alienates you from one group of people or puts you in another setting of another group of people, or gets you to feel about some people one way and feel about other people another way. Let me tell you something. When you fully grasp who's pulling strings, who really purposely put the information in you to accept or not to accept or to whatever it is, when you understand that your trauma and the pain that you've gained from other realities that you serve, that there was still also people pulling strings. There's still also systems that's been designed to oppress people from actually understanding that all of us are owners, that all of us are creators, that all of us are gods, that all of us have power and authority to say no to things and to do things and achieve things. When you come to an understanding of who you are, who you're called to be, then you understand that unity and combining and coming together as one in a village, it makes that community unstoppable. It makes that community relentless. It also makes your testimony, it makes your heart, it makes your whole soul always provided for. One of the things I know this for sure. The day I ever have kids or whatever the case may be, and if there's one out there for me somewhere, I'm gonna tell you this fact. And I'm gonna be very truthful and very distinctly clear about this. Anything happens to me, I pass away, let's say I'm married now, I have family, I have kids, whatever the case may be. Anything happens to me, I pass away, anything happens to me, I'm gonna tell you this right now. My family's gonna be taken care of. The community that I serve, the organization that I serve, the people that I love, the people that I care about, they're going to ensure that my family for the rest of their lives are going to be taken care of. That's the life of a legacy I plan to leave behind. My books may not be doing it now for me right now. It's going to do it for the generation after me. My songs may not be doing it for me right now. Maybe they're meant to do it later for me, but they're mainly meant for the generation after me. The church might not be able to afford my services right now and what I'm able to contribute to the church and the organization and what it means or something like that. Maybe when I'm done here, the structure would be so developed that they're able to not only sustain, but also afford it to develop their staff without people having to work in secular industries that strain their focus and that cap their abilities. And also causes them to suffer and their families to suffer. You know, I can guarantee that. I can guarantee that because my faith in God starts within. And that's a lesson that it's going to take us a lifetime to walk and journey together with. So every day we're going to be talking with something in that reference. But until then, I really appreciate everybody who's stayed with me this far and been a part of this journey. I want to say I love you all. I appreciate you all. And I just wanted also to highlight a friend of mine who was away and lived in, I think it was Ghana, in Africa, had moved back to the U.S. Her name is Maya King, and she's an amazing person. And I will tell you this, I heard her testimony, I heard her sharing her story, and just bits and pieces. And, I don't really know all of it. Right now, we were college mates. We went to school together. Incredibly beautiful, amazing person, heart of gold, platinums, diamonds. Her story is one that will bring you to grips with a reality that we really have to know who we are. We really have to also be it's not just the realistic part, but it's also in tune with who we are and our origins. And her story is powerful. I felt like if I had to write another book other than the ones I'm going to be releasing, it would be as a ghostwriter for her memoir or something like that. I just feel as if like it's so epic in a way that her journey has such depth and an understanding placement that can shift focuses and shift realities and shift the way that we make good on not only our word, but also that how we build relationships that are healthy, and also how we purposely position each other and motivate each other, and also how we motivate our cultures and other cultures, and how all of these things work together. I just wanted to say that. I just said that touched me, that moved me, and it encouraged me, because I was coming in a place where it's going into different relationships that are now becoming fragile, because once you develop so far with persons, you realize now that some of those relationships are going to need resources, and they're going to need more resources. And the lesser the resource, the harder the strain. And everybody knows that. And that's why I really admire Jordan G. Welch, because she really shows that it takes time, not just develop, but to develop resources. And she has really practically used her resources well, and just showing both sides of who she is as an individual, as an executive I was at a chemical. She worked in the chemical industry, and the ability of understanding engineering. She is an incredible artist, an incredible person. But let me stop talking. But people that I admire, because I'll start talking about CeCe Winans and Shirley Caesar coming together. So this Friday, oh my God, Come Jesus Come is going to be, oh my gosh, everywhere with CeCe Winans and Shirley Caesar. If Good Fridays couldn't come any earlier, I felt like if this was a ode, homage or something like that you're paying to somebody, I felt like it would be this. It was just, I feel this one deeply, not just for my generation, but even for my mom's generation, for other generations ahead, and even for the Gen Z and Alpha that may not even fully grasp what's happening with this song and what we're gonna see is something that was rarely been done in a lifetime. You usually see it in really younger generations and stuff like that, but you have two generations of people that were in an era where they were both significantly just like dominating, and now CeCe Winans is back. You know, not just dominating it, but she is like the mother. You know, and then I feel like if Shirley Caesar is, you know, passing that baton on and saying, "Hey, you know, I'm gonna give you that." You know, I felt like this is like that. You know, I felt like this is a baton to be like, mother Cece. You know, I mean, but Cece's been a mother for a while, man. Like, I admire her, and I wish I was signed to her record label, honestly, because I feel as if, like, not that I could contribute more than what she's getting now. I just would love to be a part of that journey, and just that worship, that level of worship, that level of dedication, that level of commitment to family, to church. And I feel as if, like, it just reminds me of my home church and why I remain with my home church. I don't like the fact that is a denomination of, you know, some other Pentecostal movement or whatever the case may be. And I have my reasons why personally, but if we were non-denominational, I feel as if, like, our impact in the community would be greater. Not that it isn't already great. I just meant that maybe there would only be one church on the island at this point. Just because, like, I don't know. I just feel as if the future generations, Gen Z and Alpha, they're going to be drawn to non-denominational churches. That's just my take. I just feel as if, like, non-denomination churches is going to have missions and mission statements, vision and mission statements that are focused on healing people and putting structures in place for all. And maybe that's why our national bishop did what he did with the one church, one family, one future. I think it's like that whole reconciliation bit to add to what we have, and I think it's beautiful. I mean, I think it's probably one of the most beautifully well written visions and purpose in what he's done. So in the way you feel as if, like, you're not even a part of a denomination, you're just a part of a family. And I feel as if, like, that's where prophecy should have been, and maybe all churches should have been that way, focusing on it in that perspective, because it shows that no matter what denomination you're a part of, we're all one family. And I think that's his purpose in saying that we all need to be in communications with each other in these times. We all need to be in structural talks with each other in these times. And we all need to be taking what we've learned and trying to apply it not just in our communities, but in our households, but also on our jobs, and making sure that the environment improves because we're putting the light back in it. And not allowing for the light to be suffocated any longer in our communities and nor in our countries. And so I think that's where his heart is for his people, and his generation and all generations. And so I'm right there. I'm right there with that vision. I love it. I could see it being the best sustainable vision for all churches moving forward. Just with this community, it's just a little different because, you know, that shift is just going to take a little while. But I think with the advancements that are happening, we'll see God's hand in everything. Well, I said too much again. Let me thank you all for again listening to this podcast. This is my last podcast on The Course of Life, my book. And so now we're going to start talking with more stuff coming up in the future, which is the music stuff. We're dropping and whatever and stuff. And I'm bringing some people on the podcast. and probably have some kickoffs and some fun and stuff like that, and probably have a lot of, probably a lot of laughter too. So just be encouraged. Keep hope alive. Don't lose the hope. Don't get discouraged. Whatever you do, do not get discouraged. Keep hope alive, and keep your mind set on Jesus. Keep your hearts pure, and try to connect spiritually. Like, be spiritually connected. Like, I feel as if my spiritual growth has advanced so greatly. So I'm excited. I'm excited ahead. I hope you are too. And once again, this has been the Love and Worship Podcast. You've been listening to Kingsley Kase, your host. As always, stay tuned for more episodes to come in the future. Grace, peace, and love.
You got the desires, yes, you got all the ones. But what you do when they're gone?